Would you like to know what Sheryl Crow taught me about context? And I'm talking actually about the law of context, which is one of 9 music marketing laws or laws related to building a successful career in the music business. And it's not a word you hear very often associated with marketing or career development context. So we're going to dive deep into that, what I learned from the time that I interviewed Sheryl Crow, and use a few other examples from my life and things that you are most likely familiar with. That's what's in store for you in this episode. So stay tuned. This is the Music Marketing Podcast, episode 95. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I am Bob Baker, your humble host, bringing you some more delicious information and inspiration related to music marketing and music career development. This time I'm going to read a segment from my newest title. It just came out a couple of months ago in early 2016. It's called The 9 Irrefutable Laws of Music Marketing. I know that sounds like a powerful statement, but these really are the 9 principles that I think that govern all successful acts. They have some element of all 9 of these things happening that work to their advantage to build a successful career and connect with fans and all of that good stuff. This is one or a section that's referred to as the law of context. And so if it's okay with you, we'll dive right into it. And if you like what you hear, right now the 9 Irrefutable Laws book is available only on Amazon as an ebook in the Kindle store. And so it's available like in 13 countries as a downloadable ebook. And the thing is, you do not have to own a Kindle device to read Kindle books. There are all sorts of free apps in many ways that you can read Kindle books when you purchase them. So if you're thinking, oh, I don't have a Kindle, I can't read it, well, that is a myth. And so go to Amazon and see if you can find it, The 9 Irrefutable Laws of Music Marketing. So here we go with this segment called The Law of Context. Years ago, I had the pleasure of interviewing Sheryl Crow. It was August of 1993. Her debut album, Tuesday Night Music Club, had just come out. And at the time, she was living in St. Louis, which is my hometown, where at the time I was publishing a local music magazine called Spotlight. A publicist from A&M Records had called me and actually pitched Sheryl as a local success story since she was living in town at the time. Back then, I had never heard of her, but I agreed to do the story. Sounded cool, and so I met with her at a local restaurant. The interview lasted about an hour, and she was a delight to speak with. Afterwards, she invited me to attend a show at a local club later that week. The musicians that she'd been rehearsing with were getting ready to go on their first tour with her, and so this was a warm-up gig. As I recall, there were about 35 people at the show in a small venue that held about 150. Sheryl and her band put on a good performance. And at the end of the night, I wished her luck. But honestly, since the songs on the album seemed so different from the established radio formats at the time, I wondered how well her career would fare. Well, I think you know where this story is going. 6 months later, in 1994, I started hearing the song All I Want to Do all over the radio. You know, all I want to do is have some fun. I'm sure you've heard it. The song peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart, and the Tuesday Night Music Club album rose to number 3 on the Billboard album chart and has sold more than 5 million units. Here's the cool thing. At the 1995 Grammys, Sheryl was nominated in 5 categories and won 3 of them: Song of the Year, Record of the Year, and Best Female Pop Vocal. Obviously, a lot happened with Sheryl Crow's career in the year and a half that followed my interview with her. And no, I'm not taking any credit for it. So imagine how I would have reacted to the prospect of interviewing her if it had happened maybe like a year later after her radio and chart success. Do you think my level of enthusiasm would have been higher? Do you think I would have anticipated meeting her differently? And what about the live show at the local venue? Would it have been better attended a year later? Could she have even had a concert like that at such a small venue? Of course, these are rhetorical questions. A lot changed with her exposure and her popularity. But was she drastically different? Did Sheryl Crow change a lot in that short time period? Not really. Even though I'm sure she improved as a performer while touring, she was essentially the same person I met in 1993. Same voice, same songs. What had changed was the context in which I and the world viewed her. And that's the core principle behind this music marketing law, which can be summed up this way. People's perception of you and your music is greatly affected by the context in which they view you. I remember thinking the same thing after the first season of the TV talent show American Idol, when Kelly Clarkson won. They portrayed her as a cocktail waitress from Texas who became a pop star. Similar storylines played out with Susan Boyle and Paul Potts, who gained fame after winning performances on Britain's Got Talent. Imagine seeing any of these singers at a karaoke bar before they were well known. I'm sure they all would have inspired a round of applause after their songs, but would it have had the same impact as them performing on a big concert stage with big league sound and lights? Probably not. The same singers, the same talent, but not the same reaction. The main difference maker is context. But here's the thing. Context isn't only determined by media exposure and high production values. They help, but there are many other ways to influence the way people perceive you. Now, in this chapter, what follows is a section that's called 6 Ways to Implement the Law of Context. That's how I actually end every chapter in the book, with the steps that you can take to implement the principle, or the law, if you will. And so, as I just mentioned in that previous paragraph there, don't think that you need to have a major label deal or be on a national television show or be on the cover of a magazine to improve your context. I list a number of simple ways that an indie artist at any level can do that, like how you arrange and create your performance space, things that you can do with media exposure on a lower level, how that's important. Also, just being intentional with the way that you look and you dress and how you carry yourself can improve your context, the way you describe yourself. However, I do want to read one of these ways here. It's actually number 5 of the 6 ways to implement the law. And it sounds so official, doesn't it? You're not going to get any tickets if you break any of these laws. By the way, just adhering to them will improve your odds of success in music. Anyway, here's a section that's called Initiate a Feeding Frenzy. I'll never forget the lesson I learned many years ago after a gig. When the show was over, I parked myself near the exit at a table where I was selling cassettes of my music. Yeah, I know, cassettes. I told you this was many years ago. Half of the crowd filed out without buying a single tape. And you've probably seen this. They either avoided eye contact with me or just quickly said, "Great show," as they hurried by. Then a single person stopped at the table to buy my recording. A few more people shuffled by until a couple stopped to see what I was selling. Then a few more people slowed down to see what the first 3 people were doing. And before long, a line had formed at my table, which caused then even more people to stop and see what all the commotion was about. The lesson I learned was the impact that just a couple of people can have on the behavior of everyone who comes after them. Derek Sivers delivered a great TED Talk on this topic called Leadership Lessons from Dancing Guy. And if you haven't seen it, you can find it at sivers.org/dancing guy. I also remember a show I played with a band years ago where one table of friends influenced the entire room. The small group of fans were the first ones to get up to dance and the most vocal in applauding and interacting with the musicians. I mean, the whole room was energized because of them. The next time we played that venue, these enthusiastic friends did not attend, unfortunately, And it was a completely different experience. I mean, for the performers, for us, and for those people that were in attendance. So, what can you do to initiate a feeding frenzy? Do you have a small group of excited and expressive fans? Can you create incentives for them to attend more of your shows? Or can you get people to gather around your merch table after the show and on breaks? I'm not suggesting at all that you manufacture a fake crowd to manipulate people. But how can you put people who are genuinely excited about your music to good use to naturally motivate other people who are on the fence? So it was a powerful lesson that I learned about the influence that just a small number of people can have when they're enthusiastic and they're expressing themselves. It can just have a almost like a viral effect on the rest of the people in the room. And the same goes for your own enthusiasm for your music. If you're up on stage, or if you're talking to somebody about your music and you're monotone, and you go, I play the guitar and here's the next song. But if you're like, hey guys, welcome, this is awesome, I'm so glad to see you all here, and you interact with them and you encourage them to express themselves or clap or sing along. I mean, all those things add up to more engagement and for people to feel a sense that, hey, this is something. I'm an important event. This is rocking. This is more than just somebody playing, at a coffee shop or something. So there's all sorts of things that you can do to improve the context in which people perceive you. And when you improve the context and their mental framework of how they view you, you can increase the value that they hold in their minds of what you bring to the table for them in their lives. And so again, that wasn't the whole chapter because I missed out on 5 of the other ways to implement the principle. But that's just one of 9 irrefutable laws of music marketing in the new book of the same name. So look for that on Amazon, currently available only as an ebook, and hopefully soon, in the next couple of months, I'll have also a paperback version of that out. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening. I hope you thought this was helpful. And I appreciate you listening to the podcast as always, because without you listening to it on your end, wherever you are in the world, it'd just be me sitting in my home office talking to myself. So I really appreciate the fact that this is getting out, I know, to hundreds and thousands of active musicians and music biz folks all over the planet listening to this at their convenience, while you're driving, while you're jogging, however you consume it. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I'll be back with another episode real soon. So in the meantime, this is Bob Baker saying so long for now.